the Delivery tab. To access the Delivery tab, simply click on Deliver here. The Delivery tab is where you export your films. So Resolve will create video files out of your edits. There are 5 main sections in the Delivery tab. First, we have the monitor. On top of it, we have this drop-down menu. It allows us to select which timeline to render from our project. And we can use the transport controls to view our film before exporting. Then we have the render settings section. The render settings section contains a lot of options that determines the properties of the video file Resolve will create out of our edit. And if you scroll down, we'll find the option to expand some advanced settings and also subtitle options. And to make things easier, Resolve comes with this presets bar, where you can find pre-created presets for some of the most popular export formats, making things easier and faster. So for example, this is the preset for YouTube, and through this drop-down menu, you can select from 3 different presets based on the frame size you want YouTube to use when exporting this project. So you can select from 3 presets for YouTube, 3 presets for Vimeo, and even presets to round trip to Final Cut, Premiere, Avid, Pro Tools, and more. So for example, if I select the YouTube 1080p option, now YouTube is highlighted. You can see the icon is in color now. And now Resolve populated all the settings here with the right options. So the exported file will have the best settings for YouTube. Here I have a section for file name. This is where you determine the name of the file you are exporting. It will be automatically set to match the name of the timeline you're exporting. So for example, if I switch from timeline 1 to test timeline, the file name here will be changed to match the name of this timeline once I select a new preset. And here you can click this button to select the location the file will be exported to. Then we have the timeline. It allows us to choose what section of the timeline to be rendered. We can render the entire timeline by right-clicking here and clicking on Select All. So now the whole timeline is set to be rendered. Another option to render the entire timeline is from this drop-down menu here, where I can select Entire Timeline. Or I can render a portion of the timeline by going to the point where I want to start the render from, for example here, right-clicking and selecting Mark In. Then going to the point where I want the render to end at, right-clicking and selecting Mark Out. And you will have the portion to be rendered highlighted. This bar here shows us which part of the timeline will be rendered. And we have some of the standard timeline view options here. Like if I click on this button, I get the timeline view options, and I have the controls to zoom in and out. Then we have the clips section. This clip section allows us to select a certain clip in order to render this particular clip by right-clicking and selecting Render this clip. And now if we zoom out, you'll notice that Resolve selected this particular clip and added an in and out point around this clip to be rendered. Then we have the render queue. After selecting all the settings of the file you want to export and the range you want to export in the timeline, now you need to add the render command into the render queue. You can do that by simply clicking Add to Render Queue. You will have this render job created here. It's called Job 1, and this job will render the selected portion using the selected settings here into a new standalone file. To start rendering, you can simply hit Start Render here. We can add another job to the render queue. So maybe we want to render the same segment or a different segment to a higher or lower quality file, for example. So I'll come back to settings here and select a different preset. And again, click Add to Render Queue. And now I have 2 render jobs ready to be rendered. Note that to render all jobs, I have to select all of them. So I'll click on the first one, hit Shift, and select the second one. And now both are highlighted. And then I can hit render, so all the selected jobs will be rendered out. Note that any changes you make to the render settings after you create a job will not affect the render jobs you already have lined up.